b'magal yad. Magal yad is a sickle or a scythe. It's a harvesting tool, which has it's a curved tool. You're all familiar with it, right? It's a curved tool. It has two cutting edges. One cutting edge is smooth, that's the inner cutting edge, and the outer cutting edge is jagged. So says the Mishnah, Hashochet b'mago yad, that if you shecht with a sickle, a harvesting sickle, bitsur, or with a sharpened stone, ubikane, or with a sharpened reed, shchitaso kshera. In all of these cases, the shchita is a good shchita. Okay, so you don't need a knife necessarily to shecht. You can shecht with anything which is sharp enough to cut the simanim. That's what you need. You need something which is sharp enough to cut the simanim. So you can shecht with this sickle, with this sharpened stone, or with this sharpened reed. And then that's part number one of the Mishnah. Part number two of the Mishnah. Hakol shochtim, everyone can shecht. Ula olam shochtim, and they can always shecht. Uva kol shochtim, and they can shecht with anything. All right, we have to figure out what this second part. Pretty vague, right? The second part of the Mishnah is pretty.
It seems like we put a lot of time in.
Right? Second part of the Mishnah is a little bit vague, and obviously the Gemara is going to spend some time trying to figure out what that says. But the Mishnah continues and says, "Chutz with the." This is still number two, right?
Yeah.
Still part number two. Hakol shochtin u'la'olam shochtin u'bakol shochtin. Chutz mimagal katsir, with the exception of a harvesting sickle. The first thing that we mentioned is a magal yad. That's a hand sickle. Here we're talking about a harvesting sickle, and a harvesting sickle, we'll learn, has only one sharpened blade, and that blade is a jagged, it's a serrated blade, okay? And it's usually on like a stick, as opposed to something that you hold in your hand. Okay, so chutz mimagal katsir v'hamigera. Megera is just check.
A saw.
A saw, right? Can't remember that, right? Megera is a saw. V'hashinayim and teeth. V'hatziporen and nails. Mipnei shehem chonikin, because all of these implements, the mago katsir, the megera, shinayim, and a tziporen, all don't slaughter cleanly. They don't cut cleanly. They are all chonkim. Chonkim literally comes from chenek, chenek meaning to strangle. Right? So what does it mean that they strangle? Because they're serrated, because the blade is serrated, what happens is rather than cutting, it literally pulls the siman. Right? It pulls the siman. With the Mishnah refers to that as strangulation, shehem chonkim, that they strangle. What is the Shabbos? What is the shchita prohibition for chonkim? What is that? Look at Rashi at the bottom. Rashi at the bottom says shehem chonkin, where from where it gets wide, the first time 1, 2, 3, 4 lines up from there. Shehem chonkin she'ein choschen, they don't cut el akurin, but what do? They rip out machmas hapigimos, because of the nicks in the serrated edge. In other words, the other than cut. Okay, so what we know that there are 5 prohibitions of shchita, right? Which one is this?
Ikur.
Correct. Yeah. Right? Correct. Ikor. Correct. Okay. This is the source, by the way, for all of those hours that you spend sharpening your knife. You can thank this Mishnah, right? For all 3 months, right? For all of the hours.
Why the
Can we interpret it
choking rather than?
Why do they refer to it as choking?
Yeah.
As opposed to what? Tearing?
Yeah.
mean, I think that's Rashi refers to it as that, as tearing. I don't know why they refer to it as choking as opposed to strangling. Let's see, there's a, yeah, they tear. They tear. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't say why.
Probably the effect it has on the animal, it's like choking it.
Choke the animal.
One's cutting off hair, and one's still. When you rip or cut.
In other words, you're tearing the siman as opposed to cutting the siman. Right? It's like if you would reach your hand in and yank the siman, right? Which you could do. But that
Well,
would,
It's a split second, but
Yeah, it's a split second. But yeah, you're
it's
right.
gonna cause
Yeah.
the animal to go through
Yeah.
some.
maybe, I don't know. I mean, you're saying it's referring to the animal, right? That's how
Right.
Simon is looking at it and says that Mipnei Shehein Cholkin is referring to the animal, right? As opposed to, or choking the animal as opposed to I don't
Cutting
know,
it cleanly.
cutting it cleanly. I don't know. I mean, why pulling the simanim is akin to choking? I
By the
mean,
way, it could also get caught on the knife and not ever cut it. If it's not a sharp serrated knife,
right, correct. It just
assuming you get
bounces.
caught in
It'll just
between the two
bounce
serrates,
from
and
one.
you're pulling it, which means you're choking it because you're cutting off the oxygen. You're not killing it.
Well, they're two different effects.
You're not cutting.
A
You're cutting off the
straight blade-
oxygen to
You're
the
cutting
head.
off. You're strangling it.
You're
instead
cutting
of
off the
cutting it.
oxygen to the brain, right?
But also a straight.
But not by cutting, by strangling, because the knife's caught it and it's carrying it,
Right.
and that kind of.
And that's how saw works. A saw works by having teeth that go in.
Right.
The purpose of a saw is almost
To
like
go back and
knives.
forth.
It's the teeth go in, and the cutting is really done by the mechanism of it being in and then moving. So basically, what you're doing is you're going deep and then stretching
Right, so
everything.
you're stretching it and basically strangling it.
Split
So
split second, but yeah.
Right.
That may
Okay.
be why.
Okay.
And you're also
Okay.
talking about, you're not talking about a behemoth.
No.
Those are a lot. Chickens.
Okay.
They didn't care about chickens back then. Chickens were part of.
Okay. So let's move on to the Gemara. Obviously, we're going to need to try to understand this a little bit more. So the Gemara begins by looking at the very first word of the Mishnah, which is the word hashochet.
Mhm.
And the Gemara says the phrase hashochet implies b'di'evid, right? Hashochet di'evid, right? B'di'evid. Di'evid in lechatchila lo. What are these terms, b'di'evid and lechatchila? What do they mean?
The image after the fact, lechatchila is the ideal way before,
Right.
the way we wanted it.
Sometimes people think b'di'evid means the best way, and I'm sorry, lechatchila means the best way, and b'di'evid means that's also an acceptable way. No, that's not true, right? B'di'evid, the only time, like you can't ask a shaila and you can't say, b'di'evid, can I do this? Right? That's
It's what you learn. Better to ask for forgiveness than permission.
right. We're saying, right? B'di'evid, can I do this? That doesn't work, right? It has to be, I did
Has
this.
someone ever asked you that?
Yes,
They have.
yes, 100%, right? But it has to be, I did this. Now what's the halacha?
What happened?
Right? Not b'di'evid, can I do this? Because the minute you're asking the question, it's not b'di'evid. Okay, so the phrase one who shechs hashochet implies that it's not the best way of doing it. It's not the way you should do it lechatchila. But if you did it this way, will allow you to eat the animal. So says the Gemara, bishlama, right? This makes sense. B'magal yad. When it comes to the hand sickle, I understand the statement of the Gemara, that it's a b'di'evid, that the Gemara is interpreting the mission to be b'di'evid when it comes to the hand sickle. Why? What did we say about the hand sickle?
It has two sides.
It has two
One's
sides.
smooth and one is serrated.
So what am I worried about?
If they use the wrong side.
Correct. I'm worried that I might come to use the wrong side. All right. So bishlama b'mago yad dilma asi l'ma'aved be'idach kisa. Perhaps I might come to use the other side. So that's why lichatchila they don't want me to use a magal yad. And b'di'evid, if I did it with the magal yad, the correct side, obviously, it's a good shchita. But lichatchila, the chachamim don't want me to use it. Okay, which raises a very interesting question. look at note 20. Rashi infers from this that one surely ought not slaughter with a knife that has a nick in it, even if he does not cut with the nicked part of the blade. What's the halacha, guys?
You have to tie it off.
You can have a pigima.
What?
Can't have
You
a
have to tie it
pigima.
off.
Can you use a knife that has a pigima?
No, you cannot use a knife that has a pigima.
What
Unless
if
the
you
pigima,
It's tied off.
What if you shechted?
You
That's,
could, but you need to cover that part.
after you
You
check
have-
and you
you
check your
have
knife
a-
and there's a pigima,
No, before you
You know
shechted,
the halacha,
before you shechted,
you know you're not supposed to use this.
right? Before you shechted,
How do
you
know
checked the
that?
knife and there was a pigima. The pigima was all the way at the very tip of the knife, right?
yes, you
Right.
can technically tie it, you can wrap it in cloth and then you can use it, but that's not.
Only Hepsid Maruva.
Only in a case of a serious situation.
Correct, but it's considered a valid shechita.
Yeah,
Right?
sure.
It's
Sure, as
it's
long as you're
considered
guaranteed not to
it's
use the
considered a
pigima.
valid shechita. We
Yes.
learned that from here. In other words, the fact that b'di'evid, the rabbis allowed you to shech, the fact that b'di'evid, the rabbis allowed a shechita that was done with a magal yad, that's teaching us
As long as it's
that
on the right side.
as long as you did it in the area where there was no nick, b'di'evid, it's kosher.
Right.
Now, we require you lahalacha to tie it off. Why? So that you
Super
know,
careful.
no, so that you know, you can say that I know that I shecht with the part of the knife that was fine, that did not have a nick in it.
But this whole thing doesn't make sense. Because if you're not gonna, if you're a shochet and you know the halachas, you already know you're not supposed to use this type of knife. So there is no.
But if you have an emergency, you have to
It
use
doesn't
it.
say emergency, it says,
Okay,
yeah,
let-
but if you used it, but
All right,
you
so
should
let's
know not to prepare.
No,
it.
so let's say the following. Let's
You're not-
say,
you know you're not sharp.
okay, so let's say you check the knife, right? And this knife had a pigima at the end, at the very end of it, right? And you put it down, you checked another knife, and that knife was perfect. And you put that down. And then after the shechita, you realize that you shechted with the knife that had the pigima in it. But you know that you did not shecht anywhere near the end of that knife. Right? I don't know. Let's say you were using a dakos knife for a chicken. I don't know if you can do such. I mean, you can do it, but
because of pressure.
right? What'd you say?
You can't because of pressure.
Too big.
Okay, so let's. I'm trying to think of it.
But I hear what you're saying.
In other words, if you put the sickle
That's a
aside,
valid knife. I'm talking about this. If you're you can't use a sickle.
right?
You're talking b'di'evet.
No, you can use a sickle.
B'di'evet. But if anyone who knows the halacha,
No, so obviously we're talking about someone who did know the
but then
halacha.
they should be checking together.
That's
Why?
Gemara time they didn't have Kabbalah.
No, we
Yeah,
learned.
Check the knife perfectly.
Right, we learned that people shechted, that people had a chazaka for, that they didn't, there was a mechanical element to this, that people knew how to shecht and could demonstrate physically that they could shecht. There was
They
also a
didn't have
yediyah
Kabbalahs,
component,
they
right? There
didn't
was
have to
also a
study
knowledge,
3
A
years
knowledge
of rabbi
component.
looking at it. It's not like that.
right? You had both elements, right? You had both those elements that were there. Okay, so obviously, Elliot, we're talking about someone here who didn't know the halacha. He picked up the sickle. He shechted with the hand sickle. He shechted with the smooth edge. He did a good maaseh shechita. By the way, it's not so easy to do a maaseh shechita with a curved knife, right? He did a good maaseh shechita. B'di'evet, it's a kosher shechita. L'chatchila, he shouldn't use it because we're worried that he might come to cut the wrong end, the wrong side. Right. So that's the same thing with the saki. Okay.
Look, all the shochets in Argentina used to use a pointed knife, and they would tie, because they were like cowboys. They would tie something on the end of the knife. I have
Really?
one of the knives upstairs. I can
Pointed
show you.
knife.
It was a pointed knife. Yeah, they weren't so they were religious, but they weren't. Argentina at the time wasn't known. This is a long time ago when Argentina first came around. Anyway, they had this knife that they carried with them, and they would put something on the end of it. They would
To make sure that they wouldn't.
yeah, but they would use that knife. Now, of course, we wouldn't allow this to.
Okay, so let's go. So the Mishnah says. So the Gemara says hashochet implies di'evid in lechatchila lo. So bishlamam b'magal yad dilma asi l'ma'abed be'idach. So that makes sense, right? When it comes to the magal yad, it comes to the hand sickle. The Chachamim were worried that perhaps you might come to use the other side of it, and therefore they said, Lechatchila, you shouldn't use this. B'di'evet, if someone went ahead and used it, they didn't know the halacha, or they forgot, and they went ahead and used it, that b'di'evet, it was kosher, assuming they used the right side. Ella, but says the Gemara, Sur v'kane lechatchila lo, right? In other words, the Mishnah seems to group these things together, right? The Mishnah says, Hashochet b'mago yad b'tzur u'v'kane. Puts them all in the same category. And implies, by the word Hashochet, implies b'di'evet. So we understand b'di'evet when it comes to the mago yad, but what about these other two? Or minhu, we have the following brisa, bakol shochtin, you can shecht with anything, bein bitsur, whether it's a sharpened stone, bein bizachuchis, whether it's a piece of glass, a sharp piece of glass, bein bikromis, whether it's the stem of the reed, kromi shalkana. Okay, so what's the kasha here? What's the kasha that's Gemara asking? What's the kasha?
That we have flint in there, and flint's allowed. Why be a b'di'evet for flint?
Not only, right?
Well,
Right?
flint
Anything
and
sharp
reed,
and
and
smooth,
reed.
basically, anything
Flint
that's
and
sharp.
flint and
Right.
Anything that won't catch, anything that's
In other
not
words, the
serrated.
Mishnah seems to imply that it's
flint is b'di'evet.
b'di'evet, right? That a piece of flint is b'di'evet, and that a sharpened reed is b'di'evet. The brisa that we quote seems to imply that it's lechatchila. So we seem to have a contradiction, right? Answers the Gemara, lo kashya. It's not a contradiction. Why? Kan bitalush, kan bimechubar. One case is talking about where these things are talush. Talush means separated from the ground. And one situation is talking about a situation where they are mechubar, where they are attached to the ground. Which one is which? Which one is which?
It has to be detached.
Can't be attached to the ground.
Which one is
Detached.
lichatchila? Which one is b'di'evet?
The one that's not attached is lechatchila, and the one that is attached would be b'di'evet.
Correct. The one that is talush, the one that is separated from the ground, that is lichatchila. But if it's still attached to the ground, then even though the shechita is good b'di'evet, but even though the shechita is good b'di'evet, it is lechatchila not permitted.
But the flint attached to it?
Okay, so excellent question.
Well, not every example can be attached to the ground, so those probably should be always considered.
Okay,
No, but it
so
says
let's
it's
look.
permitted.
Let's look at Rashi. All right, look at Rashi.
Just have to change it.
Okay. No, hold on a second. Oh, sorry. Where did I see it? Okay, let's go back. We'll go back to it. Come back to it. Okay. So how does the Gemara resolve this seeming contradiction in the category of tsur and kaneh? The Gemara says when tsur and kaneh are detached from the ground, so then you can shecht with them lechatchila. When they are mechubar to the ground, then you can't shecht with them lechatchila. Only b'di'evet, if you shechted, is it considered a good shechita, assuming that it was a good shechita. So tell me, how is mechubar with a kaneh? I understand. What's mechubar with a rock? What's mechubar with a flint?
Still on the ground?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
How?
In other words, it is
You take the animal and you cut it by the animal instead of picking up the rock and using the rock.
correct.
Huh.
I guess the flint is the same thing, but I don't know how.
All right. In other words, well, with the kaneh, in other words, the kaneh can move.
Right. They
Right,
can take I
Right, the
understand.
kaneh can move, but with the rock in the ground, rock can't move.
No,
Right, and if you pick it up, then it's not mechubar anymore. If you pick it up, it's talush.
I'm just thinking.
So it would seem to have to be somehow that the animal was, you took the animal and
it's very interesting.
you move the animal instead of moving the sharp
chances
object.
of it being a good shechita that way.
You move the animal.
1%.
1% at best.
I don't
You're
seems
talking about a behemoth.
okay.
What's that?
No, that's it.
That's what I'm saying. Talking about a behemoth, they don't really want to put their neck
Okay.
on a rock.
Um,
How the hell are you gonna get it to do it?
okay, if you look at, for instance, look at note 33. Right, while the knife was fixed in place, he moved the neck of the animal back and forth against the blade to perform the slaughter.
Ah.
Okay, that's a different case, but that's the same, whereas we're going to come to that, but that's the same,
That's not correct.
right? That's the same idea that we're talking about here. Okay?
Okay.
So seemingly we have resolved this difficulty by saying our Mishnah, which talks about bidiyeved, is talking about mechubar, when something is attached to the ground. The Brisa, which seems to say lechatchila, the Brisa is talking about a case where these things are talush, where these things are detached from the ground. Okay. So the Gemara continues. Says the Gemara. The Amar Rav Kahana said, Hashochet, here we're going to get the distinction. This is the source for the distinction between mechubar and talush. Hashochet b'mechubar lekarka, Rebbe posel. What's the halacha? According to Rebbe, if you shecht with something which is attached to the ground, it is puzzle. Why is it puzzle? Look at Rashi at the bottom of the page. Rebbe posel. We're 1, 2, 3. Well, count up from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines up. All right. Lekaman nafgalan mi vayikach es hama'acheles. Where are we going to learn? Why does Rebbe say that if you shecht with something which is mechubar lekarka, that it is posel? Because we're going to learn that what did the Kohen have to do? Vayikach es hama'acheles. He had to take the knife. What does it mean, take the knife? It means that the knife is not mechubar lekarka. Because the minute you take something,
It's not on the ground.
it's not in the ground. It's not mechubar lekarka anymore. Okay? So Rebbe, that's Rebbe's source. The Rebbe Chia machshir. However, what does Rebbe Chia do? Rebbe Chia is machshir. Rebbe Chia says it's kosher, it's a good shchita. Rashi, Rebbe Chia machshir, umasnisin diksani shchita ksheira lo misukma kirebi ela kirebi Chia. Ulechatchila mihas. In other words, our Mishnah, which is talking about mechubar lekarka. Remember, we said our Mishnah was talking about mechubar lekarka. So does our Mishnah follow Rebbe or Rebbe Chia?
Rebbe Chia.
Why, John? Those follow-up questions that are always the toughest.
Yeah, just accept my answer.
No, he's following
Why?
because he's saying it is kosher. He's saying it is fine.
Correct. In other words,
So,
our
The Mishnah says it's
if
fine.
our Mishnah followed Rebbe, then
It wouldn't say this.
it would have to. If you shechted with anything that was mechubar, it would have to be puzzle. Right? Because Rebbe says if you shecht with something which is mechubar, it's puzzle. Rebbe Chia, on the other hand, disagrees, and Rebbe Chia says if you shecht with something which is mechubar, it's kosher. Okay, it's kosher, but it is bidiyeved. It's bidiyeved, right? That's why our Mishnah, says Rashi, our Mishnah is following Rebbe Chia. I mean, John, you were right with the answer, right? Our Mishnah is following Rebbe Chia, and it is bidiyeved. Okay. So the Gemara continues. Ad kan lo kamachshir Rebbe Chia ela bidiyeved. So Rebbe Chia says it's kosher, but he's only saying it's kosher bidiyeved. It's not kosher lichatchila. Aval lichatchila lo. But when it comes to lichatchila lo, it's not good. In other words, even Rebbe Chia, who says you can slaughter with something mechubar, is only saying you can shecht with something mechubar bidiyeved. Lichatchila, you can't shecht with something which is mechubar. Okay.
Now, does
So-
the Gemara use the term bidiyeved in the same connotation as Hepzid Meruva or Sarich Gadol, or is those terms completely separate from this? Because like Jonathan said, or like someone said, or no, Elliot said, like the truth is that these are big mistakes, obviously. These aren't oops, oops, I made a mistake.
Right.
I was just wondering if, like, in those, how are these situations coming to be?
So b'di'evet means
Just was an accident.
B'di'evet means it happened.
Right, okay.
You did something, it was an accident, it happened.
But Rabbi,
All right.
how do you do an accident by taking a
Right,
banana
that's
and
what we're
cutting
saying.
its neck with a rock that's on
I
the
mean, it seems like a lot
That's
of,
not an
Because
accident.
no, but you thought it was okay to do.
you thought it was.
So it wasn't really an accident because
Wasn't
you
an
thought
accident,
never
it was that
accident
person
because it is
that had
okay
no
after the fact.
Right, but then how do you know that you didn't do any other stuff like dress?
They don't. They're not.
So-
they're not addressing this.
I'm just saying, like,
I guess that's what I meant.
We're
When you
gonna
say-
we're gonna talk about that.
when
I
you
mean,
say
that's an important
So
question,
he didn't
right?
know he did it, and then after the fact.
No, he knew he did it.
No, he knew he did it,
He
but he
didn't
didn't
know
know
it
it
was
was wrong.
Right.
He didn't know it was
So
wrong.
he still did it with chachila. I mean, honestly, he took
thought-
the rock.
In other words, he thought
It was
he
okay.
walks the behemoth over to the rock. There's this real sharp rock sticking out from the side of the cliff.
He's like, wow, this will be easy.
Right? He walks the behemoth over to the side of the rock, and before the behemoth knows anything, it's shechted.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, that's what I wanted to
And
know.
he was careful, he was careful to say that, I know there was none of the other psulei shchita existed. Now, and then he finds out afterwards,
You shouldn't have done that.
shouldn't have done that. So the question is now, is the shchita a valid shchita or not a valid shchita?
I don't think they're talking about real life situations here. But we know.
No, they always do. They don't quote things. There's a right. Isn't there
No,
something in the Gemara?
I think what John is saying is how practical is this? Right? The Gemara doesn't care how practical it is. Whereas the Gemara,
It just has to be said.
right? The Gemara is interested in teaching us the principle here.
Okay.
But the Gemara is not interested in making this seem practical. In other words, you could say, forget this. This is crazy. Like, who's walking the behemoth over to this rock sticking out of the cliff and shechting the behemoth on this rock sticking out of the cliff?
Because if this was a modern book, they'd say Rabbi Loki then kills the shochet
Right.
for doing such a thing.
But what I'm saying, John's point is well taken, which is, hey, this isn't so practical.
Right.
And the answer is, John, we're not interested in practical. What are we interested in? We're interested in
thought process.
principle.
The
Principle. We're interested in principle. Even if it's not practical, we're interested in principle. So the principle here is that the shechita is good, but only b'di'evet. That's the principle. Whether it's practical, whether it happened every day, is irrelevant. We just want to know what's the principle behind it. And the Gemara is illustrating the principle with these cases that maybe don't seem as practical as we might think they do. Okay?
Fair enough.
So the Gemara is now, so what have we established up until now? We've established the Mishnah. Well, let me ask you. Okay. How have we established the Mishnah?
That
With
things,
Rabbi Chia, no?
With Rebbe Chia and
that things are accepted if they're
B'di'evet.
B'di'evet.
if they're attached to the ground and if
Okay.
they're not.
So we've narrowly defined our Mishnah as in accordance with Rebbe Chia and B'di'evet, correct?
Correct.
You guys are comfortable with that,
Yes.
right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So now the Gemara is going to ask a question. What does the Gemara say? Says the Gemara, B'mai ukimta ki Rebbe Chia v'di'evet. Right? Why, right? In other words, you've established, right? You've already established that this Mishnah was in accordance with Rebbe Chia and b'di'evet. Says the Gemara, Ella ha desanya. What about the rest of the Mishnah? In other words, part one of the Mishnah is Rebbe Chia and b'di'evet, but then the Mishnah goes on and says, Bakol shochtim, that you can shecht with
Anything.
everything.
Everything.
Bakol shochtim, bein betalush, whether it's separate from the ground, bein b'mechubar, whether it's attached to the ground, bein shahasakin lamala v'tsavar behema lamata, whether the knife is above and the neck of the animal is below, bein shahasakin lamata v'tsavar behema lamala, and the neck of the knife is underneath and the neck of the animal is above it. Says, right, the Gemara says that when the Mishnah says bakol shochtim, what does it mean bakol shochtim? So it seems to mean all of these things. You can shecht bein betalush, bein b'mechubar, whether the knife is below or whether the knife is above. So says the Gemara, Mani, whose position is this? In other words, it doesn't look nice. It doesn't work to have a Mishnah that is composed of different authors. In other words, the author of the Mishnah should generally be one person. And this Mishnah is telling us the view of this one person. So we've already established that the first part of our Mishnah is Rebbe Chia and B'diavad. What about the second part of our Mishnah? The second part of our Mishnah,
Everything's l'chachila.
who's the second part of our Mishnah like? Is the second part of our Mishnah like Rebbe Chia? Well, first of all, is the second part of our Mishnah like Rebbe?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Definitely
Why
not.
not? Because what does Rebbe say?
It's never
It's
allowed.
invalid.
He says puzzle if it's
Attached.
attached. If it's mechubar, it's puzzle. So it can't be like Rebbe. Is it like Rebbe Chia?
Slightly more, but not 100%.
It's not like
the
Rebbe
Mishnah
Chia
saying
either,
no,
right?
There is no restriction.
Right?
It's not before or after.
Right?
it's
Mani,
first
who?
place.
So exactly that's the question that our Gemara asks. Who's the author of the second piece of the Mishnah? If you want to claim the first piece of the Mishnah is Rebbe Chia, who's the author of the second piece of the Mishnah? Mani, who is it? Lo Rebbe, it's not Rebbe because Rebbe says mechubar lakarka is puzzle. And the second part of the Mishnah, Bakol Shochtim, implies that mechubar is fine. Below Rebbe Chia, and it's not Rebbe Chia. How do I know it's not Rebbe Chia?
Because he says only be
Because he says only b'di'evet. I Rebbe Chia di'evet in lechatchila lo. I Rebbe di'evet nami lo. Right? So in other words, we have a problem.
No one ever.
We have a problem. The problem is the first part of the Mishnah we established like Rebbe Chia. And now we come to the second part of the Mishnah.
And it can only be written by one person, so it can't be Rabbi Chia unless there's going to be some words added or changed or something.
Unless there's going to be some kind of change or some kind of explanation. Correct. Okay, but you hear the problem. Problem is first part of the Mishnah we've established as Rebbe Chia. Oh, b'di'evet. Second part of the Mishnah can't be Rebbe Chia because second part of the Mishnah is saying it's lichatchila. And it can't be Rebbe because Rebbe says even b'di'evet it's not good. So we seem at this point to be a little bit stuck. So what does the Gemara answer? Lo la'olam Rebbe Chia. No, who is the author of the second part of our Mishnah? It's Rebbe Chia.
So it's saying it's Rabbi Chia regardless.
So what's the problem?
How is it Rebbe?
Because
Oh, exactly right, Jared. What's that mean? How is it Rebbe Chia?
How is it Rebbe?
He's saying
Rebbe is only
B'di'evet.
saying in a b'di'evet sense. He's not
And
saying
this seems to imply.
l'chachila everything about it.
Okay, so says the Gemara. Says the Gemara. Lo la'olam Rebbe Chia. Va'afilu lechatchila. And what does Rebbe Chia really say? Va'afilu lechatchila. In other words, Rebbe Chia really. Go back to a second to the case where you see the Tosfos that begins with the word Ella on the right margin. Go directly over in the Gemara and you see where it says the Amar of Kahana. This is the source for the machlokes between Rebbe and Rebbe Chia. The Amar of Kahana. Hashochet b'mechubar lekarka. Rebbe posel. Rebbe Chia machshir. Rebbe posel. Rebbe Chia machshir. Does it say anything about lichatchila or b'di'evet?
no, not there.
It doesn't, right?
Not
It
at all.
doesn't there. It just says Rebbe posel, Rebbe Chia machshir. In order to solve another problem, we said that our Mishnah was talking b'di'evet. But this case, which is the machlokes between Rebbe and Rebbe Chia, could be
He
interpreted as
originally just said it's
b'di'evet.
good.
He just is
He didn't
machshir.
make it clear.
He didn't say, in other words, the brisa which is quoted is not clear. Was he machshir it lichatchila, or was he machshir it only b'di'evet? It's not clear. We wanted to say our mission is talking about b'di'evet, and because it's mechubar. And if our mission is talking about b'di'evet, it must be Rebbe Chia, right? In other words, the only one who could possibly permit it is Rebbe Chia. So now our Gemara comes along and says, no, we misinterpreted Rebbe Chia. What is Rebbe Chia's position? La'olam Rebbe Chia va'afilu lichatchila. In other words, what is Rebbe Chia's position? What is Rebbe Chia's position when it comes to shechting with something which is mechubar?
Well, we said it's Bivyeda, but it could, in fact,
What's the Gemara saying here?
saying it's not. It's in the first place.
Right.
Everything's allowed.
The Gemara is
Rabbi
saying,
Chia is saying he meant that everything's allowed.
the
Well, maybe
Gemara,
he means everything's allowed the Evan.
No, well, maybe.
Maybe that's.
And that's how we at first interpreted it. But what's wrong with interpreting it that way?
Flint and Reed.
Well,
What's wrong with interpreting it that way is the
doesn't-
second part of the Mishnah.
Right, the second part.
The second part of the Mishnah is implying that mechubar is good lechatchila. So who says mechubar is good lechatchila? We don't have anybody who says mechubar is good lechatchila. Rebbe says mechubar is not good even b'di'evet.
Right.
Rebbe Chia seems to say, at least the way we interpreted Rebbe Chia, that it's good b'di'evet. Along comes our Gemara to say we misunderstood Rebbe Chia. Lo, says the Gemara, La'olam Rebbe Chia, our Mishnah is like Rebbe Chia, Va'afilu lechatchila. And Rebbe Chia says you can shecht with mechubar, afilu lechatchila. According to Rebbe Chia, if it's attached to the ground, you can shecht lechatchila. Okay. So now the question is, wait a second. V'hai de kamifligi b'di'eved, right? The fact that they disagree b'di'eved. In other words, when we interpreted this statement of Rav Kahana, where Rebbe was posel and Rebbe Chia was machshir, we interpreted it to mean Rebbe Chia was posel bidi, right? Rebbe Chia was posel even b'di'eved, and Rebbe Chia was machshir only b'di'eved. That's how we first interpreted it, right? Is there any other way to interpret that?
Well, the line you read earlier doesn't imply that he means it b'di'eved. It just,
How would you interpret
we
it?
interpreted it as he meant that because it makes sense that he would in our heads thinking through it. But if you want the Mishnah only be written by one person, and these are the two choices, then we've got to assume he didn't mean that.
Okay, so here's
Because we're assuming one when we really could assume either way.
okay. So let's do this. Okay, let's do it from this perspective. I have two people. Okay, Rebbe over here, Rebbe Chia over here. Okay, Rebbe says puzzle. Rebbe Chia says kosher. Okay, they could be arguing about two. We could explain this argument in two different ways.
They could be
So
arguing.
I just reread it. He could just simply be saying, Rabbi Chia could be saying that anything that has, because the last of the line in the Mishnah is about the teeth. So he could be saying anything with a proper blade can be used. B'di'eved shchita. No? I mean, if you reread it again, that's what it almost.
I think he's
Okay,
saying
let's not go to the teeth. The teeth are a completely
Right,
separate
separate
issue.
thing, but if you
But let's
reread
not get to the teeth.
Okay.
You're already jumping ahead to the.
I'm just wondering if he's
Right.
just saying that anything with a proper blade.
Focus with me on this, okay?
Sorry.
Rebbe is possible. Rebbe says no good.
Okay.
Rebbe Chia says good. Give me two ways to interpret those statements.
They could be talking about whether it's attached or not attached. You don't know.
No.
They could be talking about l'chachila.
They could both be
Yeah.
talking about lechatchila.
Yeah.
Rebbe says lechatchila, it's puzzle,
Right.
which means what does Rebbe hold?
That it's possible either way.
No.
No, that
If
someone-
they're arguing about lechatchila,
Right.
Rebbe says puzzle, Rebbe Chia says kosher. What does that mean? Rebbe says puzzle lechatchila, but why am I not? clicking
no,
with
he
you
says, but no, he says puzzle. He says puzzle. He says puzzle l'chachila
What does puzzle lechatchila mean?
means you can't do it knowingly.
But b'di'eved is okay.
But b'di'eved, it's okay.
But it's okay, right?
In other words, we could, if they're arguing, in other words, if we
Oh, I
look,
see where you're going.
if we look at this at this machlokes between Rebbe and Rebbe Chia, if we look at it as they're arguing about lechatchila, so it could be Rebbe says puzzle, meaning lechatchila it's puzzle,
B'di'eved.
b'di'eved it's
And
okay.
then Rav Chia is saying
Rebbe Chia is saying
It's either
even
way.
lechatchila it's good.
even
That's if they're arguing
So
about
that's how you're making
lechatchila.
that assumption to make this work.
What if they're arguing about b'di'eved?
It doesn't work.
No, it does work, but you have to reinterpret them. If they're arguing about b'di'eved, what does puzzle mean?
It's not good. Even after the fact.
at all.
Before,
ever.
he's basically saying, Rebbe's saying if you're taking that side.
No,
It's
but
not after.
Rav Chia is saying it's
It is.
pasul l'chafila.
No, Rav Chia said it's
No.
not Patzalach.
Remember, we're two glasses here.
Okay.
One glasses is our lichatchila. We put on our lichatchila glasses and we look at this machlokas between Rebbe and Rebbe Chia.
They're arguing.
Right?
about
When
that.
I look at Rebbe says puzzle.
Right.
What do my glasses tell me that means?
Probably l'chafila.
Puzzle. They're arguing about lichatchila. So when Rebbe said puzzle, he meant
No good even.
puzzle lichatchila, but b'di'eved,
It would be okay.
it's okay. Rebbe Chia says kosher lichatchila.
With knowledge.
In other words, lichatchila, no problem.
But if you say that,
That's-
then it's also
Wait a
okay
second.
after the
Wait a
fact.
second.
You don't
That's
have to
one
have-
way of looking at their machlokas, correct?
Okay.
You could look at their machlokas
Absolutely.
that way. Or you could choose to wear the glasses of b'di'eved. And if you look at their machlokas through the glasses of b'di'eved, now we have to figure out what they're saying. Rebbe says puzzle. What does that mean?
It's pasul after the fact.
Meaning that there's no way it's kosher. Not even b'di'eved. Afilu b'di'eved is puzzle. Rebbe Chia says kosher, meaning
After the fact, it's kosher also.
b'di'eved it's kosher. Right?
Well, because if you're saying it's kosher if you have knowledge, you can't say it's not kosher if you don't have knowledge.
No, I'm just saying there are two separate ways
Okay.
of looking at this machlokus between Rebbe and Rebbe Chia.
But there's only
Two-
one way to look at it if you want it to fit the Mishnah.
Well,
And
hold
then
on. We're going to see. Hang on a second. All right. That's what brings up the question. Is that assumption? But maybe that assumption is not correct. Right. So, for instance, the word puzzle that Rebbe uses could have two different meanings. Puzzle could mean puzzle lechatchila, but fine b'di'eved, or puzzle could mean puzzle even b'di'eved. Machshir or kosher that Rebbe Chia says could also have two different meanings. It could be kosher lichatchila, or it could be kosher but only b'di'eved.
But if he's saying that, it doesn't fit the Mishnah.
Wait a second. Depending upon how we structure it, right? Depending upon how we look at it. John is saying, if we say they're arguing about lichatchila, so it doesn't work in our Mishnah.
No, if they're hiring with that, it doesn't work in our Mishnah because
Okay, so I'm sorry. John is saying if they're arguing about if we're establishing Rebbe Chia as saying he's talking b'di'eved, which means we're establishing Rebbe is saying b'di'eved, we're establishing Rebbe Chia as saying b'di'eved. We're looking at it through our b'di'eved glasses.
but it's not
So
necessary.
it doesn't work in our Mishnah.
Discuss
It doesn't work in our Mishnah because the middle part of our Mishnah
Says it has
is
to.
talking about lichatchila.
Is it possible they're both talking about different things?
Oh,
One's
wait a
talking
second.
b'di'eved,
So
one's
here's what I'm
talking
going to do.
l'chafila?
Here's what I'm going to do.
What is-
I'm going to take
That's-
one lens from my b'di'eved glasses and one lens from my lichatchila glasses. And I'm going to look at it that way. So in other words, what am I saying? Rebbe Chia really believes that it's kosher lichatchila. But if Rebbe Chia is standing up and yelling from the mountaintops that it's kosher lichatchila, so then when Rebbe says puzzle, what do we think about Rebbe's puzzle?
He's saying after.
He's saying puzzle lichatchila,
Which
but
means
b'di'eved
good.
is good. So therefore, even though Rebbe
I
Chia
like that.
really believes that
I
lichatchila
like
it's
that.
good, that's really what his position is.
That's how it reads.
He goes on the record book as saying it's b'di'eved. Why? Because now when he says it's b'di'eved and Rebbe disagrees with him and says puzzle, what is Rebbe's position?
Pasul l'chafila.
Puzzle even b'di'eved.
Even b'di'eved.
Puzzle even
Sorry,
b'di'eved.
pasul.
In other words, Rebbe Chia is doing what he's doing to show us how against this Rebbe is. You hear that?
Yes.
Is it making sense? Is it
Yes.
clicking?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
They would just outright say what they mean.
There'll be a lot
Elliot,
of
if they outright said what they mean, we would.
have nothing to do to them.
Okay, so let's look at that inside. It's a little bit complicated, but let's
I
look at
like
it
that.
inside.
No, I like that.
Okay, so the Gemara is going to, right, because we're starting, right, we had a question. The question was, we established the first part of the Mishnah according to Rebbe Chia and b'di'eved. Now the second part of the Mishnah is saying it's lichatchila, so who does this follow? Does it follow Rebbe? No. Does it follow Rebbe Chia b'di'eved? No. So the Gemara comes along and says, no, we're going to establish it like Rabbi Chia. La'olam Rabbi Chia. Va'afilu l'chatchila. Rabbi's position is afilu l'chatchila, meaning what? Rabbi's position is even Rabbi Chia's position is even l'chatchila. It is good. Ve'ela masnisin diksani ashochet di'eved in l'chatchila lo. All right. Did I skip? Hold on a second. Hold on. So Rebbe di'eved nami lo la'olam Rebbe Chia va'afilu l'chatchila masnisin diktani hashochet, which implies b'di'eved Rebbe he, right, is Rebbe. I skipped a line. Hold on a second. Go back. I explained the whole thing to you, and I skipped the one. Okay. So I'm a Rebbe Chia the Eved in lechatchila lo. Rebbe the Eved nami lo. So the Gemara says la'olam Rebbe Chia va'afilu lechatchila v'hai dekamifligi b'di'eved. Why are they arguing? In other words, Rebbe Chia's position is lechatchila. This is fine, but in the argument with Rebbe Chia, Rebbe Chia's position is even lechatchila. This is fine, but in the argument with Rebbe Chia.
Rebbe.
Okay. Rabbi Chia's position is even lechatchila, this is fine. But in the argument with Rebbe, thank you. But in the argument with Rebbe, Rabbi Chia says b'di'eved, it's kosher. Now, why does Rabbi Chia, who believes lechatchila it's kosher, why is he in the argument with Rebbe invoking b'di'eved?
Because you said he wanted to show
that
how against the Rebbe was.
Okay, look at the next words. Lahodiacha kolcho de Rebbe. Why is he doing that? Why is he establishing their machlokes in b'di'eved? Lahodiacha kolcho de Rebbe, to teach you the strength of Rebbe. In other words, to teach you how vehemently Rebbe believes that it's puzzle.
Okay.
That Rebbe believes that it's puzzle even b'di'eved. Okay, you hear this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who wants to say it over for me? Go ahead. Come on, who wants to say it over?
Rav Chia says that everything is fine. Rebbe is.
Well, let's start out with our Mishnah. Okay, let's start out with our Mishnah. Okay.
Mishnah according to Rav Chia, everything.
Wait. So how did we start with our Mishnah? Our Mishnah started by saying that the word hashochet seems to imply what?
Hashochet.
The word hashochet, the very first word of our Mishnah, seems to imply what?
I don't remember.
Those brains working. Seems to imply what? Go back and find it. Hashochet implies b'di'eved.
B'di'eved, okay. Sorry.
Right, one who shechted, not.
It's
This is
already
how you
been
should
done.
check.
It's already been done.
One who shechted with these things. It implies b'di'eved. What's the problem with that? With implying b'di'eved in our Mishnah? We have a contradictory brisa that seems to imply what? All of these things are, or certainly the flint and the reed are l'chatchila. How do we resolve that contradiction?
We say that the Rebbe and Rav Yechia.
No, before that. How do we resolve that contradiction?
One is attached, one is.
We say the Mishnah is referring to l'chubar, which is b'di'eved, and the brisa is referring to talush, which is l'chatchila. So we establish our Mishnah b'di'eved, and according with the opinion of Rebbe Chia. Says the Gemara, right? Says the Gemara now. Okay, very nice. You've established the first part of our Mishnah, like Rebbe Chia and b'di'eved. But when you look at the second part of our Mishnah, it's not talking about b'di'eved. It's talking about lechatchila. So who's the author of the second part of our Mishnah? It can't be Rebbe, because he says puzzle even b'di'eved, and seemingly it can't be Rebbe Chia because he seems to only say B'diavad it's kosher.
So Rabbi Chia is attacking and saying, no, it's not fine. First he says it's
Rebbe
fine.
is a-
Rabbi Chia is not saying this. The Gemara is
Sorry, the
saying
Gemara is saying.
that the author of our Mishnah, and we have a choice. Is it Rebbe? No. Is it Rabbi Chia? No. Wait a second. It is Rebbe Chia. In other words, Rebbe Chia holds even lechatchila, it's good.
Which means it's always good, even after.
Well, if that's the case, that Rebbe Chia holds even lechatchila, it's good, then why did we assume that their machlokes was about b'diavad?
Because we were wrong.
Not because we were
But
wrong.
one
Their
was.
machlokes was about b'diavad.
The
But
price is.
why did Rebbe Chia choose to talk about
Because
b'diavad?
he was proving how strong the Rebbe's opinion was.
Correct. He was showing us how strong against this was Rebbe's opinion. Okay? Clear?
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Oh, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't get any water. Oh, you brought water.
I brought one. It's okay. Okay, we'll stop here because I have to run
Okay.
to class. But you guys, you have it, you think?
I think so. I like this one. This one, I like it. It's very circular, but I like
Implying
it.
that he
Still
doesn't
really
like the
trying to
others.
figure out how you order or behema.
No, but when you
Have you ever
reread that
even-
Mishnah,
you do it?
but if you reread that Mishnah, it really seems Rav Chia
Ellie,
seemed
get something.